Welcome to our webinar. I'm Dr. Gordon Telford, and I'm joined by Dr. Barry Lycka, who many of you know as being a highly respected dermatologist and founder of the Canadian Skin Cancer Foundation. Welcome, Barry. The purpose of the webinar is to introduce a new product, to provide the basic science around the product, and then talk about the business implications of introducing this product to your office. The review of the basic science will take approximately 20 minutes, followed by Barry describing his experience in his practice, and this will be followed by a question and answer session. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a dermatologist. I've been in practice in Victoria for about 35 years. Since 1988, I've had a research interest in cancer prevention and in the reversal of photoaging. For the last 10 years, I have developed and tested a new approach to the treatment and prevention of skin cancer and to the reversal of photoaging. In my practice, I see about 5 skin cancers a day. The frequency of skin cancer continues to increase, and as a result, it is officially designated an epidemic. The numbers vary, but 3 million per year in the U.S. is tenable. What we know is that the lifetime risk is 1 in 5. There are certain predisposing factors like fair skin and sunburns, and the amount of sun exposure is directly related to the frequency of squamous cell carcinoma. The frequency is indirectly related to basal cell carcinoma and melanoma. The most underappreciated factor is certainly family history. One parent having a skin cancer increases the risk to our patients 4 times. If both parents have had skin cancer, the risk is increased 18 times. We all face this epidemic every day. I will tell you a quick personal story. My response 15 years ago was to look at the epidermis and say, what is there that naturally occurs? I saw that 99% of epidermal retinoids are retinyl palmitate and its esters. I thought that they must be there on purpose, so I started making creams to see what would happen. The improvement in my patients was so impressive that I continued. The increased knowledge of the basic science surrounding this teaches us why my experiments worked. I have now used this approach for 10 years in more than 2,000 patients, and I am excited. Let's start by looking at myths of sunscreens. Sunscreens prevent skin cancer. To be effective, sunscreen should be worn 365 days a year. Sunscreen failures are due to the lack of patient compliance. Our traditional approach to the epidemic of skin cancer followed the identification in the animal models of UVB as being a complete carcinogen. We created sunscreens to block UVB. When this was ineffective, we added protection to UVA. The net effect is, and I will read this with you, despite the increased public awareness of skin cancer and the widespread use of sunscreens, the epidemic of skin cancer continues to increase. In simple terms, as a cancer prevention strategy, sunscreens are ineffective. So let's look at what sunscreens actually do. They reduce the frequency of squamous cell carcinoma and its precursors, actinic keratoses. They certainly prevent sunburns, and they have some role in the reduction of premature aging. What they don't do is reduce the frequency of basal cell carcinoma. As you know, 80% of skin cancers are basal cell carcinoma. They do not significantly reduce the frequency of malignant melanoma. The reference to this is Tambor studies, of course. How come sunscreens are not more effective? If we look at the sun's energy that impacts the skin, we see three bands or wavelengths: ultraviolet light, visible light, and infrared or heat. If we look at the relative distribution of sun's energy, it is 7% ultraviolet light, 43% visible, and 50% infrared or heat. Sunscreens are designed to block only 7% of the sun energy. That leaves 93% unblocked. Krutman has taught us that infrared light can induce the same injury as ultraviolet light, that is, photoaging and skin cancer. Similarly, invisible light. In summary, we have focused on UV, and we now realize that we have to block the other 93%. Voila, retinoyl palmitate. Retinoyl palmitate acts as a solar filter, offering protection through UVA, visible light, and infrared. It additionally is an antioxidant. We have traditionally thought of retinoyl palmitate as a storage form of vitamin A in the epidermis. Now, Surat has taught us that what it really is a sun filter. It is nature's sunscreen. It is as effective as a 23 sunscreen, or to restate it, it reduces the penetration of light by about 90%. This observation is profoundly important. Retinoyl palmitate also acts as an antioxidant to neutralize reactive oxygen species. By combining both filtering and antioxidant, it covers the entire light spectrum where the source is reactive oxygen species. So what happens when you apply retinoyl palmitate? It is rapidly absorbed. It increases the epidermal levels 50 to 100 times. It is not water washable. It is persistent until consumed, up to 17 days. Retinoyl palmitate is rapidly depleted by sun exposure. Retinoyl palmitate has an SPF equivalent of about 23 and is additive to sunscreens. In simple terms, all of the characteristics that make sunscreens unattractive are the benefits of retinoyl palmitate. In our experience, retinoyl palmitate is the single most important addition to cancer chemoprophylaxis. Shapiro, in his recent review, states, retinoids have been reproducibly shown to reduce the incidence and severity of skin cancer in a variety of experimental models and in humans. That very much reflects our experience. In summary, the traditional approach to cancer prevention, that is sunscreens, may at best reduce the frequency of skin cancer by 20%. The lack of routine use of sunscreens likely reflects lack of experience of efficacy. The risks of sunscreens is that it allow extended exposure to injury from visible light and infrared. Retinoyl palmitate, long labeled as a storage form of vitamin A, has a new role as a passive solar filter and an antioxidant. Applied as a cream, it is persistent, not water washable, and combined with a sunscreen of SPF 30 or higher, in our experience, is an effective step in cancer chemoprophylaxis. The second epidemic is even more common and pervasive. It occurs in virtually all of our patients. That is, premature aging due to chronic sun exposure. The important characteristic of chronic sun damage due to sun exposure is the photodistribution of the progressive changes. When examining a patient, stand back and see the distribution of her changes. Maximal in sun-exposed areas. This is poikiloderma, that is, the persistent redness of the neck, the irregular brown hyperpigmentation, and you can see as well chronic sun damage has produced marked collagen loss resulting in loosening of the neck. Also look in areas of specific sparing, under the chin, the lateral borders of her blouse. That's what makes the diagnosis. What's the appearance of the classical signs of chronic sun damage? First, chronic sun damage is a chronic progressive change induced by actinic injury. The first diagnostic signs are actinic lentigo, freckles that persist in wintertime. So although this is a 35-year-old male who has simply persistent freckles or actinic lentigo, a biopsy of his skin would reveal chronic severe actinic damage. The second phase is the development of wrinkles, and these have a natural progression. They tend to start first in the periorbital areas, the so-called crow's feet. Then they occur on the upper lip, so you see the destruction of the upper lip with the loss of that nice ski hill slope that typically occurs in young people. And then the development of linear furrows on the lip, so-called lipstick bleed. The last area that tends to be involved is the posterior cheeks that we call California raisins. The third diagnostic sign is laxity, baggy eyes, jowls, and loose neck. Now we look at the progression on the lips. See this young suntanny woman where you see the loss of the fine lines on the surface of the lip, the diffuse and irregular pigmentary change. You can also see the loss of that nice sharp border, particularly evident on the upper lip. As these changes progress, we see much more severe involvement, again with the loss of that ski hill slope and the development of deep lines and furrows around the mouth, and you can also see the same changes on her cheeks. With severe progression, there's a virtual total loss of the normal architecture of the lip. So to review this, the diagnostic signs of photoaging are first, persistent pigmentary change. The second is the development of fine lines and wrinkles. And the third is laxity, baggy eyes, loose jowls, and loosening of the neck. So how does retinol palmitate become the sought-after molecule in photoaging? Let's go back and look at basic chemistry. This chart you all recognize. Retinol palmitate is a member of the retinoid family. Retinoic acid, as illustrated, is metabolized to retinol, which is also metabolized to retinol palmitate. So if we increase the skin levels of retinol palmitate, it will increase the levels of retinol. So a 2% concentration of retinol palmitate applied to the epidermis results in increased levels of retinol by 25 to 50 times. Voorhees has beautifully demonstrated that topical retinol can reverse many elements of both intrinsic and photo-induced premature aging. So that is natural aging and sun-induced aging. Since 50% of the applied retinol palmitate is converted to retinol, our product contains 1.8% retinol palmitate and therefore achieves the levels equal to that in Voorhees' study. We know that retinoids are the mainstay of therapy in photoaging. Therapy with retinoids produces epidermal smoothing, permanent reduction in actinic lentigo, and stimulates the growth of collagen type 1 and 7. Why is retinol palmitate the preferred molecule? It adds the element of photoprotection, and secondly, it is not irritating. So the benefits of retinol palmitate are that it reduces the visible signs of sun-induced aging, reverses natural aging, both the retinol effect. And what you see clinically is within 1 to 2 weeks, the epidermal smoothing is quite apparent to you and the patient. By 4 months, there's permanent reversal of brown patches and irregular pigmentation. And by 6 months, you see permanent improvement in fine lines and wrinkles. This is progressive over a period of 2 to 3 years. We're going to look at photographs of a patient of ours who's been on retinol palmitate for about 10 months. First, if you see in general, the skin on the right looks much healthier and the pigmentation is much more even. If you look particularly in the periorbital and the forehead areas, you see significant effacement of lines and wrinkles. We all know the limitations of photo documentation. A straight-on view shows the same features. Look particularly at the lines and wrinkles around the forehead and periorbital area. Look as well at the general appearance of healthy-looking skin. Now we look at the same patient in a lateral view on the right, and again we see before and after. So in summary, the benefits of retinol palmitate are, it offers all the benefits of retinoids without the irritation. The extended benefit of photoprotection results in a significant reduction in the frequency of skin cancers, actinic keratoses, and the side effect of improvement of photoaging makes this a highly desirable as a cosmetic product. We still advise sunscreens as sunburn prevention. We say that if you think you could get a sunburn that day, wear a sunscreen. Is retinol palmitate safe? It is profoundly safe. Dr. Kermen, director of the Mothers at Risk program at Sick Kids in Toronto, says scaring pregnant women is a national sport both here and in the U.S. The fear initially reported by the Environmental Working Group 10 years ago is now repeated annually and is totally irresponsible. There is no evidence other than retinol palmitate is a naturally occurring molecule in the epidermis. So what is cloud vitamin cream? My wife and I have started a company dedicated to bringing the latest scientific developments in dermatology to the public because we truly believe that these advances can benefit each of us as normal Canadians. Each of our products is characterized in a similar way. That is, they're vitamin-based topical creams. The active vitamin molecule is in a simple cream base. There are no preservatives, they're not animal tested, and they're paraben free. The first product to be launched by Cloud Vitamin Cream is retinol palmitate. How is it presented? It comes as a 30 ml airless pump. Within the 30 ml airless pump is 100 meter doses, so the daily application lasts 100 days. How do we use it? I typically use this in the shower. My skin is wet so that it's at the end of the shower. I use one pump on my hand and I rub the two hands together. I use one hand to apply it to the face, including the eyelids, lips, and ears. I also stroke it back through my balding scalp. I rub my hands and apply it to the neck, décolleté, and arms to the elbows. One small pump covers that large an area as long as it's done on wet skin. We suggest sunscreens when there's a risk of sunburn. Remember, a 30 ml tube lasts 100 days. The use of an airless pump markedly inhibits the possibility of contamination of the cream. The numbers? The wholesale cost of retinol palmitate is $24. The retail cost, $48. The profit per client per year is $96. That is, the retinol palmitate is repurchased every 3 months for a total of 4 sales in a year. If you see 2 patients a day that purchase Cloud retinol palmitate, the result after 1 year is $21,888. In my experience, seeing 45 patients a day, it is very easy to introduce a product to new patients, and there is little price resistance. Once they are on the product sells itself. Over time, if you start looking at an increasing number of clients, you see increasing return. The profit continues to increase incrementally, with an increase in both clients purchasing the products over time, as the chart below indicates. Thank you for listening and participating so far. I am honored to have Barry Lycka join us to share his experience introducing this product in his office. His experience as the founder of the Canadian Skin Cancer Foundation and his astute observation of the business of medicine makes him a superb contributor. Barry, could you tell us your experience of introducing retinol palmitate in your office?
About my practice to the listeners.
Please.
I'm a dermatologist who does a lot of skin cancer work, but I also do a lot of cosmetic work as well. So I do Mohs micrographic surgery. I'm one of the first in Alberta to do it. I do about 300 to 500 cases a year of Mohs surgery. Plus, I treat thousands of patients with actinic keratosis, etc. My practice is busy. I see about 50 to 70 patients every day. It's a joy that I do that. But what bothered me about my practice is I was seeing more and more skin cancer. I was seeing more and more sun damage. And I keep seeing more and more of it. And even though I get my patients to use sunscreens every day, we were still seeing a lot of skin cancers come through. We were still seeing a lot of actinic keratosis come through. We had means to treat some of these, like 5-FU and Aldera. But boy, those are very harsh compounds, and a lot of people don't like them. Picato looked like it might be useful, but it's so irritating, a lot of patients don't like that either. So I was looking for a compound that actually can reverse some of the damage without the hardship of many of the things out there, and also to prevent more skin cancers from coming up and actinic keratosis coming up. Well, last January I started looking into retinol palmitate. Gordon and I reacquainted ourselves with each other. We've been friends for a long time, and we basically talked about this product, and I started using it on my patients. Well, currently we have over 1,000 patients on this material. I think it's closer to 1,100 now. It's very easy to tell patients of it and get them on it. It's very easy for them to love it. But the biggest thing I saw is their actinic keratosis are decreasing in number. I see their skin looking better and healthier. I see people with less basal cells and squamous cell carcinomas. Now that hasn't impacted me economically because I have so many of these to do. I can't even possibly do the numbers that I have. So we are now in a preventative mode. We are treating these very well. Also economically, this has been a benefit. The sales have been nice, and not only do the patients buy it, but their spouses buy it, and even their family members buy it. You know, I think everybody that's white over the age of 20 can benefit from a cream like this. And I think the numbers are just the tip of the iceberg right now compared to how many people need this product. I've been a big advocate of this, and I love this product more and more. And what's more important is my patients love this product more and more.
I think coming from a guy who's the founder of Skin Cancer Foundation, that's a very strong affirmation. Hopefully over time we will bring out other things that help also to reduce the frequency of skin cancer. But what a nice endorsement, Barry. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Gordon. You know, the Canadian Skin Cancer Foundation's goal is a world without skin cancer. It's going to take more and more products like this to really help do that.
Absolutely. We're having fun doing it.
Excellent. Thank you, Gordon.
See, if there are any questions from the audience. Here's a question. It says, are there any side effects of the product? Our experience is that in general, this product is almost free of side effects. Certainly all of us, when we started using Retin-A, in my case 35 years ago, because I'm kind of old, experienced severe side effects in any patient as we increase the dose high enough. Retinol, much less irritating, but still 20 to 30% of patients experience side effects. In our practice, approximately 1 or 2% of patients experience side effects. Usually when they're dealt with, the advice that we give is we say stop the cream, restart it 1 day in 3, then 1 day in 2, 1 day in 1. And we find with that regime, almost no patients, even the most sensitive skin patients, can have difficulty tolerating this treatment. They love it. Barry, is your experience similar?
Yeah, I think in my practice, there's been about 2% of patients that have had some irritancy with it. So I decrease that by either introducing it again slowly or mixing it with a moisturizer.
Absolutely, that's a good idea.
Both of these seem to be well tolerated. As I say, the number of people that are irritated by that is very small. We've never had an allergy to the material, which is really nice as well.
There's an interesting phenomenon, and that is we're likely going to see that the natural source of retinol palmitate, in fact, is oil glands. So that the reason why we don't see irritation is this is the natural molecule. This is the pure vitamin that your skin normally makes. That's why we see such high strength. Next question is your 60% customer retention rate. What we find, and Barry's alluded to, and certainly over the years that I've been using retinol palmitate, literally patients come back on their own. They come into the office, they buy something, they do it every 3 to 4 months on a routine basis. It has very little involvement from me directly. So I'm very pleased to see. I think one of the most important measures of how good a product is how readily people come back spontaneously to buy it. Would that be similar in your experience, Bear?
Yes, the retention rate is extremely high. Most patients love this product so much they get it again. I think the retention rate for myself is around 80%. Those that don't maintain on it usually just have a financial problem that they can't maintain anything really. So they're the ones that can't stay on it. But really the most important is that the retention rate because of the product itself is extremely high.
Isn't that nice? It's satisfying, eh?
Yes, it's very satisfying for me and the patient.
There is a request for recent scientific studies that support our claims. In the last year, there has been a dramatic increase in the amount of scientific literature that's available. The article that Barry was describing is we call it Shapiro, and what it is a review of the use of retinol palmitate and its cancer-preventing capacity. There's been a recent review, long-term review of the results of the TAMBER studies. Those are the ones that we're describing when we say that basal cell carcinomas are not prevented by skin cancer. That was published this year. There's also been a recent review by Surratt. So Surratt, you'll mention, is the name of the guy who discovered the sun filtering capacity of retinol palmitate. Anyone that wants to, you could certainly send me an email and I will happily give you a short list of what I think are the key references, because I think this deserves our scientific attention. And I think, Barry, you are quite a fan of the Shapiro article too.
Yeah, I think the Shapiro article that occurred earlier this year is one of the best articles clearly on vitamin A and its derivatives, including retinol palmitate. It clearly explains the mechanism of action, how it works, and why it's so important to use this molecule. And it also goes through the safety factors, which were raised by the environmental working group. So again, it really is very important as an article, a seed article.
Thank you for doing that, Bear.
You're welcome.
There's another question. Will you be developing a line of skincare products, or is this the only one? And what is happening is that my wife and I have developed this company. As I mentioned, that what we're trying to do is present forefront dermatology. We think that it's important for patients to have available to them the most current and modern molecules. So the first one is retinoid palmitate. The next one is niacinamide. We all know that there's been a dramatic increase in the scientific and clinical value of topical niacinamide in the last 2 or 3 years. There will be several others, all of which share the same characteristics that we described earlier. So in the near future, we have at present 4 products, and 2 more will be coming out in the next several months. So each represents a substantial improvement in our ability to treat. We can look forward to excitement, Barry.
I think it's going to be a very exciting decade, Gordon.
Thank you. We hope to be right in the middle of it. Is retinoid palmitate sufficient as a sunscreen, or do I need to use a sunscreen in addition? Certainly, there's value in sunscreens without question. Number one, they significantly reduce the frequency of squamous cell carcinoma. Number two, they certainly allow us to live a normal lifestyle. Retinoid palmitate as a sunscreen is highly effective, but it is not effective in extreme sun exposure. So if we want to live our outdoor lives like we do, our advice is if you think you might sunburn today, put on at least a 30 sunscreen as well, follow those other sunscreen rules, and of course, covering clothing, wearing hats, all the standard advice is completely appropriate. So RP is good every day year-round, but when you're going to go out in the sun for extended periods of time, add a sunscreen. Is that similar advice to what you would give patients, Barry?
Yes, in fact, I recommend people use the vitamin A at bedtime, sunscreen in the morning. I find that's a nice combination.
Absolutely.
That way they don't have to put too much on their skin at any one time and they're not feeling overloaded. I also found that in 2 of my journeys that I made this year, one to the Baltic Sea where it was very sunny, and the other one to South Africa where it was very sunny, I didn't bring any sunscreen because of customs problems, and I was just carrying carry-on luggage. Both of those I carried my vitamin A, my cloud, used that religiously when I was in the sun and had no problems with the sun whatsoever. And I'm very pale. I burn very easily.
Isn't that a nice endorsement? Are there any other questions that people would like to ask? No, I think we're actually done. So Barry, I very much appreciate you being part of this presentation. It's
Gordon,
an
it
honor.
really is my pleasure. I'm always glad to support a product that is working very well for my patients and is doing something for my practice that I very much like.
Thank you again, Barry, and thank you, each of you, for taking the time out of your day to attend this webinar. If you have any other questions, comments, or would like to receive more information or samples on cloud retinoid palmitate, please let us know. You're always welcome to write me directly at my email, which is the address above. Again, thank you for taking this time today, and we'll look forward to communicating with you in the future. And thank you, Barry, again.
Thank you, Gordon. My pleasure. Have a great night.